Rahim was the kind of man everyone in his town respected. Soft-spoken, hard-working, and deeply loyal to his family. At work, his colleagues admired him for his honesty. In the neighborhood, people trusted him with their problems. But inside his own home, Rahim was treated like he was invisible. His wife, Samina, had a sharp tongue and a habit she never tried to hide, mocking her husband. It started with small comments in private. "You're too simple, Rahim. You don't know how to dress properly. Why do you always stay quiet? Can't you be more like other men?" Rahim would smile faintly, thinking silence was the best response. But over time, her disrespect grew bolder. At family gatherings, Samina turned her husband into the subject of her jokes. "Oh, don't ask Rahim to fix anything. He can't even change a light bulb without calling a neighbor. If I depended on Rahim's income alone, I'd still be living in my parents' house." The words stung like knives. The room would sometimes fall silent, sometimes burst into awkward laughter. Rahim would bow his head, hiding his pain behind a weak smile. He thought to himself, "If I answer back, I'll hurt her. If I stay quiet, I only hurt myself." One evening, Samina's disrespect reached its peak. Her parents had come over for dinner. The table was full, cousins, uncles, neighbors. The atmosphere was warm until Samina decided to make a cruel joke. She looked around and said loudly, "Do you know why Rahim never argues with me? Because he doesn't have the courage. He's too weak. Honestly, sometimes I feel like I married a servant, not a husband." Laughter erupted across the table, but not everyone laughed. Rahim's mother, who had been silently eating, froze with her spoon in mid-E. Her old eyes glistened with tears, but she said nothing. Rahim's heart tightened. He glanced at his mother, and for the first time, he felt shame, not for himself, but for letting her witness this humiliation. That night, when everyone had left and the house grew quiet, Rahim sat alone in the courtyard, staring at the dark sky. His mind replayed Samina's words over and over again. His fists tightened, but not out of anger, out of determination. For years, he had chosen silence, believing patience was strength. But now, a new thought entered his mind. Respect is not begged for. It is owned, and sometimes it must be demanded. The storm inside Rahim had begun to rise, and little did Samina know that her days of mocking him were slowly coming to an end. The morning after that humiliating dinner, Rahim woke up before dawn. He sat quietly, sipping his tea, his eyes fixed on the rising sun. Samina was still asleep, unaware of the battle brewing inside her husband's heart. At work, Rahim was different that day. His colleagues noticed. "Everything okay? Rahim bhai? You're usually so cheerful." Rahim only smiled faintly, but inside, he was thinking, "Enough is enough. I won't argue with her. I won't shout, but I'll show her my worth." That week, Rahim began to change small things about his routine. Instead of rushing home, he stayed late at work, taking on extra projects. He began dressing more neatly, ironing his shirts, polishing his shoes. He started reading late at night, learning new skills quietly, while Samina scrolled on her phone or watched dramas. Samina noticed these changes, but instead of appreciating them, she mocked him even more. So now you're trying to act like a big man. You think new clothes will make you important." Rahim didn't answer. His silence was no longer weak. It was strong, calm, and unsettling. A few weeks later, something unexpected happened. Rahim's boss announced a major conference. Important business leaders, government officials, and media would attend. And Rahim, because of his dedication and honesty, was chosen to represent his company with a speech. When he told Samina, she laughed out loud. "You? A speech? You can barely say 2 words in public without stammering." Her laughter echoed through the room, but this time, Rahim didn't look away. He looked her straight in the eyes, calm and steady, and said, "You'll see." Samina froze for a second. Something in his tone, something in his eyes, was different. It wasn't anger. It wasn't pleading. It was certainty. The day of the conference arrived. The hall was packed, cameras flashing, reporters scribbling notes. Samina came too, not out of pride, but to see her husband stumble and embarrass himself. But when Rahim walked to the stage in his crisp suit, standing tall with confidence, the entire hall grew silent. He began to speak, clearly, passionately, with wisdom that surprised even his colleagues. Every word carried weight, every sentence held dignity. People nodded, applauded, some even stood up in admiration. Samina's smile slowly faded. Her mocking laughter was gone. She sat frozen, watching the man she had ridiculed for years command a room full of powerful people. For the first time, a flicker of doubt entered her heart. Was this the same Rahim she had belittled all these years? The sound of applause still echoed in Samina's ears as Rahim stepped off the stage. People rushed to shake his hand, to congratulate him, to praise his wisdom. Mr. Rahim, your words touched my heart. You've inspired us all today. Samina forced a smile as people greeted her too, calling her the wife of the great Rahim. But inside, something twisted in her chest. For years, she had laughed at him, mocked him, made him look small. Yet here he was, standing taller than ever, admired by strangers, respected by leaders. That evening, back at home, Samina couldn't stop thinking about it. She sat quietly while Rahim read his book, as usual. His calm presence now felt heavier, stronger. Finally, she blurted out, "So, you gave a good speech. Don't let it get to your head. People clap for anyone these days." Rahim didn't even look up from his book. He simply turned the page and said softly, "Respect isn't asked for, Samina. It's earned." His words pierced deeper than any argument. Samina's pride wouldn't let her admit it, but her heart felt restless. Days passed. Slowly, Rahim's life began to change. Neighbors started greeting him with more warmth. His relatives, who once laughed at Samina's jokes, now looked at him with admiration. At a family gathering, one cousin whispered, "Samina is lucky to have a husband like Rahim. He's a man of dignity." Samina's face burned with shame. For the first time, she didn't want to make a joke at Rahim's expense. Instead, she sat in silence, fiddling with her teacup. That night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her thoughts were loud. Have I been wrong all these years? Have I blinded myself with pride? But when morning came, her tongue betrayed her heart again. Don't think you're some big hero now. Just because people clapped, it doesn't mean you're special. Rahim listened quietly, but this time, his silence carried power. He had already decided he would no longer live under her shadow of disrespect. He would rise, not by fighting her, but by becoming someone she could no longer ignore. Samina didn't realize it yet, but the cracks in her pride were only beginning to show. Weeks passed after Rahim's powerful speech. His company began to trust him with bigger responsibilities. Invitations came, seminars, community events, even school programs where people wanted him to speak and inspire. Everywhere Rahim went, people admired him. At the market, the shopkeeper greeted him with extra warmth. "Ah, Rahim Bhai, I saw you on TV. What an honor for our neighborhood." At the mosque, elders patted his back with pride. "May Allah bless you. Son, you've made us all proud." Even children from the neighborhood followed him, calling out, "Uncle Rahim, Uncle Rahim." But inside his own home, Samina's pride still fought against reality. One evening, Rahim was invited to a community award ceremony. The mayor himself would be present to honor individuals who had served society. Rahim was one of them. Samina dressed elegantly, not out of love, but because she wanted people to see her as a successful man's wife. The hall was full, lights shining, cameras flashing. Rahim walked onto the stage, received his award, and gave a short speech. His words were full of humility, gratitude, and wisdom. People stood in applause. The mayor shook his hand and said, "Men like you are the backbone of our society." Samina's cheeks flushed red. Dozens of eyes turned to her with admiration. "That's Rahim's wife," someone whispered. She forced a smile, but inside her heart burned. For years, she had belittled him. Now, everyone looked at her as if she was a fortunate one. After the ceremony, relatives and neighbors surrounded Rahim. "Brother, we're proud of you. Your wife is lucky to have you." Samina's lips trembled. That sentence repeated in her head. "Your wife is lucky to have you." For the first time, she felt something she had never felt before, shame mixed with guilt. But her pride was stubborn. On the way home, she crossed her arms and muttered, all this is temporary. People clap today, they'll forget tomorrow. Rahim glanced at her, calm as ever, and replied softly, respect earned honestly is never forgotten. Samina's words failed her. She looked out of the car window, hiding her face as her heart fought a silent battle. She was starting to realize the truth. The man she had disrespected for years was no ordinary man. After the award ceremony, Rahim's respect in the community grew rapidly. He was invited to schools to motivate students, to charity events, even to speak at a local TV program. Everywhere he went, people admired his humility. But at home, Samina's attitude still wavered between pride and denial. One weekend, Rahim's extended family gathered for dinner at his elder brother's house. The living room was filled with chatter, laughter, and the aroma of biryani. Children ran around while the elders sat in a circle, discussing life. Inevitably, the conversation turned to Rahim. Mashallah, Rahim has made us all proud. We never knew he had such wisdom until we heard him speak. Samina must be so proud to have a husband like him. Everyone turned to Samina, waiting for her response. Her lips tightened. She forced a smile and muttered, yes, he's doing fine. But her coldness didn't go unnoticed. Rahim stayed quiet, sipping his tea, his calm presence making her discomfort worse. Then, unexpectedly, Rahim's elder sister spoke, her tone gentle but piercing. Samina, forgive me for saying this, but sometimes I wonder, why don't you show pride in him? You're blessed with a husband many women pray for. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Samina. Her face turned pale, her throat dry. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time, someone had openly questioned her treatment of Rahim. Rahim, however, placed his cup down and spoke softly, breaking the tension. It's all right. Respect doesn't have to be spoken in words. Actions will always reveal the truth. His words echoed in the room. Some nodded. Some looked at Samina with quiet judgment. Samina's hands trembled under her dupatta. Shame burned inside her, but her pride refused to bow. She forced a laugh and changed the subject quickly. But deep inside, her heart was breaking. That night, when they returned home, Samina sat silently on the bed. She stared at Rahim, who calmly folded his clothes, preparing for the next day. Her mind whispered over and over, everyone can see it. Everyone knows the truth. How much longer can I hide behind my pride? For the first time, tears welled up in her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away before Rahim could see. Her war between ego and guilt had truly begun. The days after the family dinner were heavy for Samina. Everywhere she went, she heard Rahim's name spoken with admiration. At the market, Baji, you're so lucky. Rahim helped my son with his studies. At the mosque, your husband is an example for all of us. Even in casual conversations, neighbors praised him, while Samina's heart twisted with unease. One evening, Rahim was invited to give a talk at a local school. Proud parents, teachers, and even the headmaster attended. Rahim spoke with kindness, sharing lessons about honesty, patience, and respect in family life. The audience clapped warmly. Parents nodded, teachers smiled, and even children's eyes sparkled with admiration. As the applause filled the hall, someone from the crowd stood up and asked loudly, Rahim Bhai, you always talk about respect and patience in marriage. Mashallah, your wife must be your biggest supporter. Tell us, how does she encourage you? The question cut through the air like a knife. The entire hall turned to look at Samina, who sat in the front row. Her heart pounded, her palms grew sweaty. Rahim paused. His calm eyes glanced at her. For a moment, she feared he would reveal the truth, that she had mocked him for years, crushed his dignity, and given him nothing but disrespect. But Rahim only smiled softly and replied, She is my test and my teacher. Through her, I've learned patience, strength, and the value of silence. The hall erupted in applause again. People looked at Samina with admiration, thinking Rahim's words were a compliment. But inside, Samina felt her soul shatter. Those words, my test and my teacher, echoed in her mind. She realized Raheem had never exposed her flaws, never shamed her, never answered her disrespect with disrespect. And yet, she had humiliated him countless times. That night, back home, Samina sat on the edge of the bed, tears streaming silently. Raheem entered the room, calm as ever, placing his books on the table. She wanted to speak, to apologize, to collapse into his arms, but her pride held her tongue. Instead, she turned her face away, whispering only to herself, "How did I become the villain in my own home?" Raheem didn't say a word, but his silence was louder than ever. After the school event, Samina couldn't sleep. Raheem's words haunted her. "She is my test and my teacher." Everyone thought it was a compliment, but she knew the truth. Raheem had carried her disrespect with patience all these years, and instead of breaking him, it had made him stronger. The next morning, as Raheem prepared for work, something unusual happened. For the first time in years, Samina quietly set a cup of tea in front of him. Raheem looked at the cup, then at her. He didn't say a word, only gave a faint smile before taking a sip. That smile pierced her deeper than any scolding could have. Throughout the day, Samina found herself doing little things she had never done before. She ironed his clothes without him asking. She cooked his favorite dish for dinner. When relatives called, she spoke more softly about him, but her ego still fought back. At dinner, when Raheem complimented the food, she almost said, "Don't think I cooked it for you." But the word stuck in her throat. Instead, she stayed silent. That silence felt heavier than any insult. Later that week, Raheem was invited to another community gathering. This time, Samina dressed more modestly, walking beside him quietly. As they entered the hall, people greeted them warmly. "Mashallah, what a lovely couple." "Samina Baji, you're truly blessed." Samina forced a smile, but inside, her heart trembled. She was ashamed, not because of what others thought, but because she knew she hadn't been the wife they imagined. During the event, an elderly woman approached her. With kind eyes, she held Samina's hand and said, "Daughter, do you know how rare men like Raheem are? Treat him like the treasure he is." Samina's eyes stung with tears. She quickly excused herself, rushing to the washroom. Staring at her reflection in the mirror, she whispered, Why did it take the whole world to remind me of the man I should have cherished first?" For the first time, Samina's pride wasn't winning. Guilt was. But guilt alone wasn't enough, because deep inside, a storm was still waiting to burst. A few weeks later, Raheem received another invitation, this time from a prestigious charity foundation in the city. They wanted to honor him for his community service and honesty. It wasn't just a local event. Media and important figures would attend. Samina came along, dressed gracefully, but unlike before, her heart wasn't filled with arrogance. Instead, it was heavy, nervous. The hall was decorated with golden lights, the stage shining. When Raheem's name was called, the audience clapped thunderously. He walked up calmly, humble as always, and accepted the award. Then came the moment that silenced the entire hall. The host said, "Every great man has someone who stands behind him. Today, we would like to acknowledge Raheem's wife, Madam Samina. Please come forward." Samina froze. Her hands trembled. Dozens of cameras turned toward her. The crowd clapped, urging her forward. With shaky steps, she walked to the stage. The host smiled warmly and said, "Tell us, how does it feel to be the wife of such a respected man?" The microphone was placed in her hand. Her throat went dry. Her eyes darted toward Raheem. He stood tall, calm, his gentle smile giving her no blame, no anger, only quiet dignity. The weight of years pressed on her chest. All the time she mocked him, all the laughter at his expense, all the insults in front of family. And now, here she was, standing beside a man the whole city respected. Tears welled up in her eyes. The crowd waited. Cameras flashed. She opened her mouth, but her voice broke. I don't deserve this. For years, I failed to respect the man you all admire. And yet, he never raised his voice, never shamed me, never stopped loving me." Gasps echoed through the hall. Some looked at Raheem, some at Samina. She turned toward her husband, her hands trembling as she whispered into the microphone, "Rahim, forgive me. Before the world, I humiliated you. But today, before the world, I admit I was wrong." The whole grew silent, the only sound being Samina's quiet sobs. Rahim gently took the microphone, placed his hand on Hayes, and said softly, "Respect is not about words, Samina. It's about change. If your heart is ready, that's enough." The audience erupted in applause. But Samina, she couldn't even lift her head. Shame and relief clashed in her heart. For the first time, her pride had truly broken. The night after the charity event, silence filled the house. Samina sat on the edge of the bed, her hands clasped tightly together. Her heart still replayed the moment she confessed her shame in front of the entire hall. Rahim, as always, was calm. He neatly folded his clothes, placed his award on the table, and prepared for bed. Finally, Samina whispered, her voice trembling, "Rahim, I meant what I said. I've been cruel. I've hurt you. But please believe me. I want to change." Rahim looked at her quietly. His eyes were calm, but they carried the weight of years of silence. He didn't rush to comfort her. Instead, he said softly, "Words are easy, Samina, but change takes time." Those words struck her harder than any punishment. She wanted him to forgive her instantly, to erase all her mistakes. But Rahim wasn't angry. He was simply wise. The next days were different. Samina tried to show respect in small ways. She served his tea before he asked. She greeted him with softer words. In front of relatives, she avoided mocking him. But Rahim didn't react much. He was kind, polite, but distant, like a man who had built walls to protect his dignity. One evening, Rahim's younger cousin visited. Jokingly, he said, "Bobby, remember how you used to make fun of Rahim Bai? Those days were funny." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Samina. Her cheeks burned with shame. For the first time in her life, she didn't laugh. Instead, she looked straight at her cousin and said firmly, "No, I was wrong. There's nothing funny about disrespecting a good man." Rahim's eyes lifted slowly. For the first time, he saw something in Samina's face, sincerity. That night, as she placed dinner on the table, she whispered again, "I know it will take time, but please, Rahim, let me prove that I can be the wife you deserve." Rahim looked at her for a long moment. Then, quietly, he said, "If your respect is real, Samina, you won't need to prove it to me. Life itself will show me." His words sank deep. Samina realized this wasn't just about apologies. It was about transforming herself completely. And for the first time, she felt afraid. Afraid of losing him, not to another woman, but to the distance her own disrespect had created. Months passed since the charity event. Samina was no longer the same woman. She spoke gently. She treated Rahim with respect in front of others. She even stopped her old habit of mocking him, even in small ways. But deep inside, she still wondered, had Rahim truly forgiven her? Or was he only waiting to see if her change was real? One evening, Rahim fell ill. A high fever left him weak, unable to even get out of bed. The man who once stood unshaken in front of the world now lay helpless before her eyes. For the first time, Samina felt the weight of responsibility, not as a duty, but as love. She sat beside him, placed a damp cloth on his forehead, and whispered, "You carried my insult for years without complaint. Now let me carry your pain." Day and night, she cared for him, feeding him, sitting by his bedside, praying for his recovery. Family and friends who visited were astonished. "Samina Baji, we've never seen you like this. You've changed." But Samina wasn't doing it for them. She was doing it for the man she had once humiliated, the man who never humiliated her back. After a week, Rahim recovered. One evening, as they sat together quietly, he looked at her with gentle eyes and said, "Samina, I've seen your change. It wasn't your words that convinced me. It was your actions." Her eyes filled with tears. She held his hand tightly and whispered, "I disrespected you for years, Rahim, yet you gave me nothing but patience. I don't deserve you." Rahim smiled faintly. "Respect isn't about deserving, Samina. It's about choosing. And today, I see you finally chosen it. At that moment, Samina felt a peace she had never known before. Her pride was gone. Her heart was humbled. And for the first time in their marriage, she truly understood what it meant to be a partner. From then on, whenever she introduced Rahim to others, she didn't say, "This is my husband." She proudly said, "This is a man who taught me the meaning of respect." And Rahim? He remained the same, calm, humble, dignified. But deep in his heart, he knew patience had won. White right pointing backhand index the end.